Welcome to the Community Builder Podcast. The world is our classroom, and every moment is an opportunity to understand human connection at a newer level. On this podcast, we'll explore the minds of active community builders as they strive to leave their imprint on the world. I am your host, Travis King. Let's build.
I love it, man. So, I would love to hear quick too how you guys, met and like what that origin story looks like.
Yeah, sure. Rob and I actually worked together at a major holding company. We were part of a team of digital specialists. The project we brought together on was to work in the world of healthcare. And so it was like a 6 or 7 month assignment, I guess, all in, Rob?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And the assignment itself was kind of more of the status quo of just doing a website and kind of doing a patient portal. I mean that in the sense that Rob and I had done projects like that literally hundreds of times. So we kind of passed the time in terms of doing this kind of routine project, I should say. Kind of just hitting off, talking about tech, sports, which are two of our biggest loves, and just always enjoyed working together. And so after that project, Rob found another opportunity in Tennessee. I moved on to a couple different spots, and there was just always an admiration to want to work together again. So here we are.
That's what I'm talking about. Making it happen.
That's what we do.
I know, it's just kind of like a way of life now, right?
You got to do it, man.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend who works in HR just a few days ago, and kind of one of the things we were talking about if you're starting a company from the ground up, and there's so many different theories, but how do you hire? And I think a lot of people have really been captivated or compelled by like the Billy Bean and Moneyball for non-sports, right? Like, how do you do Moneyball in advertising or tech? But we both kind of agreed that working with people that to kind of form that culture, it usually makes the most sense, because you know what you're getting. It's a known commodity. The chemistry is going to be there, and you kind of know who to pull into that type of environment, who can supplement your weaknesses to make sure that there is diversity and inclusion, etc. So I think it's just the right way to go building things.
100%. It seems like with you two, it's kind of like the dynamic duo, and one has strengths that the other one doesn't have, and then your areas of opportunity, even if it's a weakness for the other, by combining your forces, you both can, create that weakness and turn it into an opportunity, versus whereas if you're a solo founder, you don't really have that other, head to bounce things off of. You're kind of just like who can I go to get advice on this thing?
I think that's a really interesting insight. And the one other thing that I've always appreciated with working with Kam is, you mentioned the weaknesses can turn into opportunities. It never really has ever felt like a vulnerability for me. It's all, identifying an area that, he may be stronger in than I am. It's always something that I feel like I have an open line of communication with him where he'll always push me to get better in that space and point me in the right direction. Whereas unfortunately in some areas of this day and age in corporate America, people will see that vulnerability and swallow you whole. So it's been a really good working relationship, and I feel blessed that, we have an opportunity to work together again.
I love it. I don't know if this is like a good segue, but like the voice world, like you guys are homies, you guys are friends, you guys have similar minds, and obviously enjoy working together. But like, where did the idea of working in voice pop up for you both?
I mean, I mentioned that we've always been super interested in technology, and that's kind of top of mind for me. I think Kam and I have both kept our ear to the ground with the latest and greatest technology and trends in the digital space on an ongoing basis. It's something we've always talked about. It's brought us closer together as, buddies and business partners. And I think voice has been an area that we've had our eye on for some time now. and really just a couple of years ago, just really felt like we had to make a push to get into the space before it became too late. Really becoming an expert in the space before, it absolutely took off was critical for us. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways to answer that question of kind of like, I think voice in itself as a form of communication is powerful. I see it as the most engaging form of communication. It stimulates us cognitively and it sparks our imagination. And I think the power of using like a voice platform is it allows us to convey tonality, different meanings and emotions in ways that are lost in the written word. So think about like that late night text message when parents try to use emojis and you're like, what are they trying to say? I think voice makes us human in the fact that it connects us. And so that's what attracted me to getting involved in voice. I think in terms of why we are working in voice as a platform, when you think about stats, like there's 66 million users in the U.S. In 2018, 60% of people use the voice speaker daily out of the users, 50% of users use them 45 minutes a day, and 1 out of 5 users make purchases on them. We haven't seen that type of adoption in terms of the consumer market. And so that just kind of felt like that's not a trend. Like that's not beacons or that's not VR. Like this is a change in lifestyle. And so my radar kind of went off in terms of this is something I want to get involved in. I think kind of the proof of concept to me that was happening organically before even I realized I wanted to work in voice is like my wife Kelly runs our whole household off of voice platforms, be that Alexa, but I was seeing her do her morning routines, getting the weather, the news, and listen to her calendar by just saying, "Good morning, Alexa." She was running our shopping list through Alexa and managing the kids, etc. So I just really was like, I love my wife, but she's not a tech person like me and Rob. But I kind of realized if she's having so much success and finding efficiency through using Alexa, this could really be something for mass adoption and mass consumption.
Yeah, just to elaborate on a little bit more, Cam and I having foundation in the marketing world, always had an appreciation for the concept of storytelling. And, the concept of storytelling through the spoken word is nothing new. It's been around for thousands of years. It's often referred to as oral tradition in a lot of old textbooks. And the origins are tied to the human's desire to interact with each other and ultimately pass along messages about their experience living in the world around them. Think about before the arrival of formal language, cavemen were drawing on walls, and human evolution came about, and we started to advance our approaches to storytelling. We had spoken word, books, then we started to see technological advances. But ultimately, we see voice as the latest advancement, and really believe strongly that this is going to be the future of how we're going to interact and share stories with others about the world around us. So it's something we're super excited about getting into. A little bit of a nerd as far as reading philosophy, and there's a lot of authors and scholars that have debated on the number of archetypes that we can create to define the human experience. Jung, Joseph Campbell, Christopher Booker. Booker comes to mind just because he wrote a book in 2004 that I read called The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories. And in short, really what he's getting at there is there's really a small number of plots that are out there that are consistently establishing a fundamental framework of the way we tell stories. And we thought it was really interesting that, it's virtually impossible to tell a story outside of these frameworks. And because there's common truths in the way we tell stories, we felt like that, that's going to be true in the way we approached voice as well. Just allow brands to really interact and communicate their message and be relatable with their customers and establish that personal connection. Ultimately, felt there was a way to use technology to stay engaged with, the people that they're trying to target.
Oh boy. My brain is like firing on all cylinders after all that information, y'all. I'm like, I want to go in so many different directions only because a bunch of the data that you showed them about, the numbers as far as voice is concerned. And also like the way that your wife runs your house with Alexa, and you mentioned she's not the techiest person, which is wild to me. And then even going back to some of the stuff you talked about, Rob, of, the fundamental frameworks of storytelling and how there are truths that we literally can't get away from. So I'm like, oh, which way do we go? Honestly, I'm curious, like, instead of going into, one of those directions, like maybe we can go talk on this a little bit. Compared to the other platforms that are out there today, right? There's, the written word, there's video, there's sense of smell, there's all sorts of different ways that people engage and interact with all types of stuff. But like, what makes voice different than other platforms, if you guys, have to say?
So, yeah, Rob, I guess I'll start off and you can overlay. I think taking it to kind of more of the heady angle of cognitively, there is something that is elicited in our brains. If you're going camping as a child or even now, one of the things we often talk about is the campfire effect of when somebody said, "Let me tell you a story." And that phrase in itself triggers you cognitively. If you want to lean in and you want to hear what that person wants to say, you're disarmed. So in the sense of you're willing to hear what their perspective and the story that they want to tell, you're ready to be educated. And so I think that first and foremost is what makes voice different. And let me be clear, we're not anti any other platforms. We're heavy on social media. I'm on probably like 20 group text threads across my family, friends, and colleagues. So it's not that we're knocking any of those, but we just feel like there's certain shortcomings that they have that voice doesn't. And so we just see voice great connector of making us human again versus where those other mediums kind of fall short. As far as what we tell brands or we work with influencers and athletes as well of why it's different than doing, say, a social media campaign or a traditional digital campaign is our saying is always we see voice as real estate. And what we mean by that is it's an ownable space for you to share with your audience. And since you own that space, you're not fighting to share that with other brands. So a phrase we throw around a lot at the office, and I have to give the appropriate credit where it's due because Rob and I did not come up with it. Our executive creative director, Nick Childs, what's up to Nick, came up with the idea of kind of fighting the feed. And the idea of that was if you go on Instagram, you're fighting the feed in the sense of everyone scrolling through image after image. And so how do you create a brand stopping power so someone is actually kind of sitting with your post and digesting the content that you have? And this kind of feels like in today's realm of social media, we're just fixated on what's new and I'm going to continue to scroll versus really spending time with your brand. And so if you kind of take that off social media and have a voice channel, there's an opportunity for you to message and connect with your audience without having to worry about competitors being on that real estate with you. So that's really where we see the big opportunity for brands of making a real estate play and having an ownable space to interact with your audience and message whatever you need to them and drive sales.
We also had the insight, we really just recognized that humans are habitual by nature and felt like voice was the perfect technology to try and tap into that fact that, humans tend to get into regular routines. We felt integrating flash briefings into everyday lives really provided a unique opportunity for major brands to cash in on. It just allows them to insert their own voice into the day-to-day experience of their customers. So it's something we're definitely, we've seen adoption from our initial clientele and really feel confident that we're going to continue more and more so due to the fact that the voice technology tends to get, just weaved into people's day-to-day lives.
One quick question for you both. Mm-hmm. So, Cam, you mentioned that you see voice as real estate. What sorts of ways can people that are listening also maybe implement that in their own worlds, right? Like, what are some ways that you guys help people capture the real estate of, voice?
Yeah, so I worked in the world of content and social media for several years. And one of the challenges that my groups were always tasked with was showing sales attribution. So proving that a like led to store visit or a comment about how great something was actually led to the purchase of that product. And so one of the challenges I've often found for service brands on, say, Instagram, and again, not knocking Instagram, I'm heavy on it, love the platform, but let's just talk men's fashion for a while, because we right now are in talks with a number of custom tailors. Essentially, J. Crew, Suit Supply, Bonobos, they all pull from the fashion runways, right? And so their winter line is pulled from what was shown in Milan, and they're making their version of it at the price point that fits their audience. And kind of one of the things, like, hey, I'm a dad, like, I ball on a budget, I'm not going to lie. So oftentimes I might see that Burberry or Armani shirt, but then buy the Bonobos version of it. And from a social media platform, it's difficult to kind of show the attribution of Kam saw this shirt, but bought the one that he wanted. And so, or the one that was within his budget, excuse me. So I think it's something of the conversation we've been having with these custom tailors is, instead of just promoting your line on Instagram, and then maybe, Travis is just busy with work, so he doesn't have time to go to your boutique, so he's going to go to J. Crew, which is at the mall right next to where he works, is if you're on a voice platform, you can actually have a notification waiting for Travis when he goes home, or even when he's at work, and he says, what's the notification? And then it's Kam's tailor letting you know that the winter collection is in, and you're saying, okay, and I'd like to see that. And we can actually send you pictures, a link to your phone showing you pictures directly, and then ask you, do you want to purchase? And because of the level of customization we do, if you purchased with us before, we have your size on file. Because we're using a voice device, we have your credit card information and your address either through Amazon Pay or if we're doing Google or Bixby. And so that's, again, a way of you're not sharing real estate, whereas this decision is being made across looking at images on, Instagram and then doing searches on Google to kind of figure out where you want to buy a sweater like that. I'm directly speaking to you and giving you the opportunity to buy it from me exclusively. And essentially what I just described is a conversation, right? It's not a search and discovery. It's me interacting with you, having your undivided attention and providing value as well. I'm not selling you something you're not interested in. It's something that I'm adding value. I'm giving you the ability to be on style and on trend for the season. So, and again, that's a custom men's store or men's stores that we're talking to. So in the realm of voice, it's easy because it's an emergent technology for your mind to kind of go, oh, this is Fortune 500 companies doing this or Fortune 100s. But there really is a voice application for every type of brand and every type of budget.
That's crazy. And I mean, I want to dive a little bit deeper really quick just because I'm fascinated with how this comes up in my brain. I'm like, okay, well, so what you're saying is I get home from work, and actually right now as we speak, both of my Alexa that's in the bedroom, so I have an Echo in the bedroom, I have Dot in the bathroom above the toilet, and then there's a show in the living room.
Okay.
The Echo in the bathroom and bedroom both have yellow flashing lights. So can you explain real quick what those flashing lights are? And then maybe how some of the, brands can use that like feature?
Yeah. In my household, it's usually a message from my wife telling me to make sure I take the trash out and unload the dishwasher before bed. But as a reminder, in most cases, it's a really underserved function on these devices. Typically, it lets you know that your package has been delivered if you're like a Prime member or if you ordered something off of the Google store. But if you have a voice skill, you can send direct messages. We've done that with a couple of our fitness clients to send like daily mindful meditations on a daily basis or somewhat daily basis to clients. But it's a direct message, and I say it's underserved in the sense of once brands really get on this platform, you might be coming home to 50, and then I'm sure things will have to be reevaluated. But for the moment, you can just send a direct message. It could be either in your voice, it could be in the device's voice, and again, message whatever you want to your clients. Particularly when we talk to the men's stores, we don't recommend that as the only form of communication. We suggest since they're already emailing customers and they are promoting things on Instagram to take advantage of the image aspect of just driving people to the fact that they would use this voice skill, but the voice skill really becomes a place for direct purchases.
That's crazy. In terms of like driving traffic to these things, because it seems like it's something that you'll have to drive traffic for or
Yeah.
from your actual already created audience.
Yeah.
But like, can you talk a little bit about, how to drive traffic with an audience that you already have, that you've already built, and then also
Yeah.
discoverability maybe?
Sure, absolutely. There is no one size fits all. I mean, that I would say is the most common question I'm asked, but any client or any prospect. Our methodology, and again, it's not a one size fit all. You can talk to other providers and you'll probably get different answers, but we typically just tell potential clients to use their own channels. And when we say own channels, we mean your website, your Twitter feed, your Facebook page, your Instagram, essentially where you're already engaging with your existing audience and where you're looking to attract. Just more of a fundamental belief in terms of how I approach emerging tech is you're already integrating something new into your marketing mix, so you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel of who's going to use it or try to find new users. We recommend just promoting it on own channels. As far as discoverability, we also recommend letting people know when the skill is about to launch, and whether that be buying some new media across Facebook or Instagram, doing paid social ads to let people know or let an audience know that your voice skill is launching is typically how we go about it. Our strategy has really been less, I should say, about new users to the voice skill, but just trying to engage more with your existing audience and trying to get them to take whatever action you want. In the case of our fitness clients, and if it's buy more packages and buy more merchandise, do that. In regards to other clients, it might just be you want them to be more aware of your messaging, or if we're working with an author, and apologize rambling here a little bit, but sometimes authors don't have anything to sell, but they just want people to be aware of articles that they're writing that's leading up to a book. And so those are the type of discussions we've had with prospective clients and how to promote it.
Thanks so much for diving deeper there. It's super helpful, and
Sure.
I could ask a million questions on this. Rob, is there anything that you want to add on to what Kam said?
I think he covered it, honestly. He couldn't have said it better myself, so.
I love it. Okay, so you touched on this a little bit, Kam, but about like what sorts of brands should you use voice? So I know you mentioned fashion. Are there any other brands that you both are particularly, I guess, fond of using voice as a platform?
Well, I think one thing that, and it ties really nicely into the whole concept of building community, one thing that we've always thought would be an incredible application would be tapping into the sneaker culture. I happen to be a sneakerhead myself and just I've been one for a while and really feel like it fits perfectly on voice, it ties nicely into the whole concept of community, sharing and cultivating common interests, having a uniform experience, and then, getting to know people. A lot of times, it's about the relationship and sharing, good and bad stories, struggles and wins. And I feel like that is very evident in the sneaker culture. Not to mention there's a lot of expression there. And I feel like, every pair of shoes that people cop are tied to some specific story, which, has a string in someone's heart and really just evokes an emotion. And so we always thought there would be a great opportunity to tap into that almost $100 billion market, especially using an influencer. And the person that we always bounce around would be PJ Tucker. The guy is recognized as the sneaker king. It's pretty commonly known in the sneaker world that he is an absolute game changer. Sometimes during NBA games, he's wearing 2 to 3 sneakers per game. As recently as last night, ESPN was showcasing the fact that Chris Paul just gave him a custom pair of his own sneakers. So I feel like, really building his own brand through voice, perhaps like some type of flash briefing to really showcase and highlight the story behind his sneakers, but then take it to the next level and really try and monetize the fact that we know that the resale market in sneakers is extremely popular at the moment. You have StockX and GOAT, just to name a couple. And we thought it would be really cool if there was an opportunity to go on your Amazon Echo and say, well, what pair of sneakers was PJ Tucker wearing last night? And where do I cop those? I thought that was just a really easy way to tie back to the technology to a uniform and common practice within the sneaker market. And we thought there's an opportunity also to really make sure that there was an ongoing engagement with PJ by sharing his stories and really personalizing his brand based on his experience and his love for sneakers.
That's such a smart idea. I'm so mind blown because like you got my brain going with the different ways that so many athletes can use voice as a platform. You're saying that being able to continue the engagement with your, favorite player through the power of voice and then talking about stuff that brands could potentially leverage to not only hit on the fan interest and fan love, but also like the nostalgia, the ease of purchase, but then also maybe doing exclusives. So like that to me is just, I'm mind blown right now. I'm trying to gather my thoughts, but it's very hard right now.
There's so much opportunity out there, and that's what we're so excited about as well.
Just touching on the athlete thing, and don't want to be repetitive because I did share this on Kerry's podcast and how you and I connected. But I think really the spark that kind of triggered how athletes could use voice is we were doing some consultation in the political realm. This was early in the Democratic race, and a few politicians had reached out, not specifically even about voice, but really just more so about emerging tech or what was going to be this campaign's social media in terms of the ways that social media has influenced the past two campaigns. And that in itself is a whole podcast. So I won't delve too deep into that. But kind of one of the things we were seeing on voice is, again, going back to that real estate play, was you're not on Twitter with millions of other people hoping your tweet gets shared or trying to build an audience or trying to break through that clutter. If you're having your base go directly to voice, you can do a daily flash brief and let them know how you're doing with campaign funding, where you stand with your policies, and where you're going to appear that week, right? Like I'm going to be on MSNBC this week. I'm going to be on CNN. And the more as we kind of work through that strategy of kind of being like, wow, if we can take the base from people who are receiving emails, which is really big in the political realm of how they run campaigns and keep you informed, and just get a certain portion of that on the voice platforms, that would be really powerful. Concurrently, while that was happening, it was the football off season, and Odell Beckham had just gotten traded. So around that time, he'd gotten traded to the Cleveland Browns, and I'm neither an Odell fan or not an Odell fan, but kind of felt that a lot of the feedback and headlines about him kind of was tenuous. They were just really making him out to be somewhat of a bad guy, and it was kind of like, okay, but where's the meat to the story, right? It was sort of like Odell Beckham, didn't go to voluntary workouts, but he was at Drake's concert, and you kind of think in terms of how words in themselves are powerful, of like, wait, so we're knocking him for not going to a voluntary workout and enjoying his off season as a young millionaire hanging out with Drake. We're giving Drake a lot of love on this podcast.
We are.
But that kind of tied back to, like, I've never heard Odell Beckham actually speak that often about who he really is. And so we just started to kind of noodle with this of like, okay, we're doing this for politicians, but this would also be really interesting for athletes to kind of share who they really are. Because I think in the sense of a lot of them, they play for these leagues and they're kind of seen as robotic, right? Like every Sunday, Odell Beckham just appears from underneath the stadium and plays. But obviously he, like any person, is much more dynamic than that. Like he's a human. He feels things. He lives a life. And so as we've started to evolve those ideas, that's kind of where we've netted out with people like a PJ Tucker. He loves fashion. He loves sneakers. The sneakerhead community is a community. Voice is a platform that can cultivate that. And then again, as Rob closed off of the merchandise piece of, if you have a marketplace, that's the easiest transaction in history. You're using your voice to purchase. So that was really the evolution of it. And we're really excited to see where it goes.
Did you just say it's the easiest transaction in history?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so could you share with us why? Because I don't know about anyone listening, but you just saying that out loud, I couldn't let that slip by. So I guess could you explain some context into why you both believe that is, and then maybe share with people how that in-app purchase works in voice?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's as simple as storing your credit card in a secure platform. Let's say it's Amazon.com or Google Play. Ultimately, you would store that information and just utilize your voice to activate the purchase.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of going online, you have to log on, right? Even if it's stored, you have to log on. You have to give your credentials. You have to pull up your credit card information and make a payment. Whereas if you're using an Amazon device, again, your address is stored, your credit card information is stored, and so you're just activating that with your voice, which it recognizes, and telling it to make a purchase. And because it has your home address, it's delivered at your convenience. And so you're not using your phone, you're not taking out a laptop, and you're not losing time away from your loved ones. So you can just be, on the couch with family and friends and say, hey, you know what, I want to get those pair of sneakers that PJ Tucker's wearing. All you have to say is, hey, can you order those sneakers? And so, I mean, that's the ease of it. And that's why we see it as the easiest transaction in history. And when you see, again, something like 1 in 5 people are making transactions on it, you know that number is only going to increase because of the ease of use.
Got it. And then when you say 1 in 5 people, do you mean 1 in 5 users of a voice platform or just?
Yeah, correct. I'm sorry. 1 in 5 users of a voice platform. And that number skews heavier with the younger audience, with millennials. So as brands kind of think about how this platform will evolve, you have the younger audience, whereas it's already common nature to them to make purchases. And so as they get older, this is going to be what they're gravitating towards.
Got it. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. Last week, Alexa saw that we had purchased what was the notification they gave us? It was, I forget exactly what the first one was, but remember I told you we had that yellow ring?
Yeah.
So we had one. I forget what exactly it was for. And then after that happened, it goes, hi, we noticed you haven't purchased Downy Unstoppable in a couple of weeks. What can we order now? We were like, what? Literally laying in bed, like, yo, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That was like my first example of like maybe what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, so we're platform agnostic, and so we work with clients in terms of whichever platform fits their strategy. Now, with that being said, Amazon owns, in terms of voice speakers, about 60% of the marketplace. Google is about 25%, and then in the last portion, it's a combination of Samsung Bixby, Apple Siri, and then just smaller players in the marketplace. So I will say that most of our strategies, because they have such a big portion of the marketplace, geared towards Amazon. But I think just also we salute Amazon in the sense of, if you're working with them, and why their media services are so impressive. They have over 25 years of consumer data. And so in regards to other media platforms who can kind of tell you intent or what people's interests are based on search behavior or posts that they're liking, Amazon can actually tie that back to purchase intent. And that's powerful if you really think about it. 25 years of kind of understanding which patterns are going to lead to purchase. And so we just think the future with Amazon and Amazon Alexa and using their marketplaces and leveraging that data is again just going to be very powerful.
That's crazy. Did you guys also see, and I don't know if this is something you've been following as well, but I noticed, I don't know if it was today or yesterday on one of the podcasts I listened to, but Google mentioned that they were opening up a checking account.
I did see that.
I don't know. You want to talk about that real quick? Like, how are you feeling about that?
I sort of feel like that would be an area I would steer clear of, although they have gotten into electronic payments. I know with Apple working with Goldman to get their own credit card, maybe it was just something that they felt like they needed to explore. But I haven't had an opportunity to dive deep enough into the facts to really make an accurate assessment. So before I jump the gun, those are just my initial thoughts.
I feel like every Google release, I'm always like, this one has crossed the line and I'm not going to do it, doing it. So, I love Google's products. So, I don't want to jump the gun. I kind of have the same reaction as you guys have, but I mean, our company is run off of Google Drive and other Google products. And I think they do have a really good experience in terms of their products. So interested to see what happens.
Yeah, same. I mean, at the end of the day, the interesting thing I found about it was that they're partnering with, I think it was Citibank to do the back end, and like they don't want to actually become a bank, but what they do want to do is have the user interface and and provide people a way to, use purchases, which kind of to your point of Amazon having 25 years of consumer data, it's like, okay, well, how can we get even more direct access to some of this data to maybe make a better purchasing experience for the consumers?
Right.
Which also in turn will also drive up the revenue, obviously. But
Right.
that's just my 2 cents on that.
No, I think that's spot on. It actually makes me feel more comfortable that Citibank's involved personally.
That's good to know. And I mean, Citibank, there you go. You have some trust being for people. So if you ever listen to this, anyone from Citibank, then like, good job, y'all. And yeah, I would love to kind of wrap up with both of your perspectives and takes on how people can use voice to build community and bring people together.
I think in terms of building a community, again, voice is your own ownable space and your way to message to your audience. You get to cultivate your culture with them. And so I think that's really where voice can help. We've tossed around a lot of terms about today's podcast, and I think we've talked about, the campfire effect, the cognitive effect of voice, the imagination that it sparks. Rob talked about the familiar archetypes. And so I think voice can cultivate your community by bringing those power themes across at the frequency that you want to speak with your audience. And so, again, I think that there's just a lot of opportunity right now in voice. I think it's past the testing and learning phase, and it's something that every brand should be considering at this point.
Yeah, and just to expand upon that, I feel like, every brand at this point, should just have a presence in some capacity. Don't feel intimidated to necessarily have, make an enormous splash, but make sure that you are really getting into this space sooner rather than later. I also think, it doesn't have to be your entire marketing campaign, but tell your story and identify and carve out a space where voice can help amplify the story you're telling through other channels.
So basically to back up for the people that heard this and got all that value of, okay, like you guys need to have a presence in some capacity. It doesn't have to be your full strategy. It doesn't have to be, 100% of what you're focused on, but maybe just a small piece, like even a 2% piece of what you're doing. What are some ways that people, whether it be, an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a athlete, or even a marketer or someone that's working for a company at any capacity, what ways could you guys recommend that they take some small steps to get into this? Because I know personally, like Cam, even when we chatted about it, you're like, oh, like if you want to get started in this, I take it slow.
Yeah.
Start with something simple. So like what ways or what action steps can you maybe provide to people?
I think, again, what we counsel brands on is not to reinvent the wheel or try to create a new image for yourself just because you're doing something innovative or emergent. It's still, what are your goals, right? Like when you sit down and you do your annual planning for 2020, what are your goals? Is it more sales? Is it more awareness, etc.? And so then it's how do you bring voice into that equation? I think, though, to answer your question more on a tactical level, because I know often when I kind of leave people with that, they're like, but give me an example. So to give you an example, we're big into daily flash briefings. And so I think the word daily in itself can sometimes give brands or brand managers anxiety because then they're thinking, oh man, I have to do content on a daily basis. But the majority of brands nowadays, even small businesses, do some sort of daily content, whether it be posted on Twitter or on Facebook. And so we know Rob talked about how humans are creatures of habit. And so habitually, and I talked about my wife doing, good morning, Alexa. We know that people have their routines on these devices, and a lot of them are broken up by day part, whether that be a morning routine, afternoon routine, because a lot of these devices are now in the office or when they come home from work. And so if you do these daily briefings and your audience or your customers put you as part of their routines, that's a way to connect with them on a daily basis. And also that information can be very punchy. So if you think about the WNBA, for example, it was something that we've talked about. If the WNBA is part of your daily routine, wouldn't it be cool to know that, the New York Liberty are playing tonight, who the starting lineup is going to be, and then do you want to purchase tickets to it as part of your morning routine, or just hearing that on a daily basis to kind of know who's starting tonight, who are they playing, and our tickets are available. And so that's something that content's available, right? That's not anything new. You have to rejigger, and that could be a very captivating way to get more people to go to games and to garner interest. And that works for a number of sports leagues, but we thought a lot about the WNBA because they do a lot of promotions, et cetera. And it just kind of felt like, well, that's a brand that would work well on voice. So I think for brands who are just saying, how can I get started at a cost-effective way and maybe even test engagement and whatever metrics, I think daily flash briefings is a good way to start.
I love it. And I'm going to poke one more because I don't know, my friends call me the king of poker.
No, it's all good, man.
In terms of like the investment, right? Like, because sometimes I find when talking with brands, like, well, we've already allocated our 2020 budget to every single thing that we know we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, well, let's be real. Y'all just spent $2,000 on happy hour. Let's So I guess like, sorry, it's just the truth, bro. Like, if you go to companies, it's like, yo, how much did y'all spend on happy hours this week? I'm not going to name any companies, but like, it happens.
Yeah.
So and I guess you don't have to give away any actual numbers, but how much of an investment is getting started in this space like? Like, I'm just curious for myself.
So do you mean to do something like daily flash briefings? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you could get started for sub 20K and have great impact. If you wanted to test the waters and see what voice could do for you, I think that could definitely work. I would say what I've seen more so with brands is they come in wanting to just test the waters and be cost effective. And then once they start understanding our tech platform and how we approach voice, that's when the price starts going up because they want to do more. They want to do more than just the daily flash briefings. But I don't think cost should be a prohibitive factor for brands to work, whether it be with us or any other agencies in the world of voice. I think you have to ask the question. You're not poking, right? One of the rules in terms of business development and sales is you got to be specific and you have to ask questions. And I feel like sometimes saying I can't do it because I don't have the budget and you don't know the cost, that just feels counterintuitive.
Got it. And I love that. And thanks so much for the clarity. Yeah. Because the investment and this is more specifically for the people that work in marketing at companies, I've seen, and again, not to name names or clients of the past, but I've seen people spend $75,000 to get a landing page built.
Wow.
So
this day and age, really?
Yeah. So, but even at the time it was purchased, I was just like, are you kidding me? Okay. But so seeing that and then even seeing companies spend hundreds of thousands, some people have $1 million Google AdWords spends.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, for those people that might even potentially come across this, it's like, yo, for less than 20K, which is like half a day's ad spend on like a platform that you're probably not getting that many results from.
Yeah.
Test out a new platform, spend it to the original audience, see what you get.
The landing page, I'm kind of just blown away by, but I think that's interesting feedback from you. And I think one of the things we even find when people ask which industry gets voiced the most, my answer to that is typically wine and spirits. I think Diageo, really forged the path early in getting into voice. And so I found discussions with vineyards to be a little bit more advanced than other industries because people nod to, well, Diageo's doing this and having success, but even finding that no two organizations, even within the same industry, are run the same. And so I hear what you're saying, but I feel like everyone deals with different stress and different pressures at work, and some organizations might not just be ready for, I wouldn't even say voice, but just for innovation right now. And I think that's part of the prospecting that we do and the conversations that we have of just trying to see who is ready for this. I think, though, to kind of touch on that point in terms of a small business that we worked with that had a lot of success was a yoga studio. And I mean, our initial conversations, again, it wasn't about voice. She reached out to me as someone in her network about social media, and she talked a lot about ROIs and needing to see key performance indicators. And as we kind of spoke more, we talked about those were the early days of fighting the feed. It was called something else at that point, but kind of explaining if someone is looking for a yoga studio in your city. I did a quick Yelp search, and there was like, I think 15 within a 20-mile radius of her yoga studio, and all their social media looked pretty much the same, of instructors doing different poses and really cool outfits and looking like a lot of fun. And so it was, how do you differentiate yourself in terms of, are you going to hire a better photographer? Are you going to find a cooler outfit? And so then we started talking about voice. And a lot of really what spurred her to move forward and take a chance with voice was she really moved away from that ROI and KPI conversation to more so just common sense. And when I say, and that's not meant as like a ding, but I mean that in the sense of like her challenges with the yoga studio were getting people to read new packages. Her challenges with the yoga studio was she wanted to do a merch line and she wanted a way to get it out to people when things dropped, and so she wouldn't be sitting on inventory. And so in explaining what a voice channel and voice skill could do for her, it addressed all those needs to the point where numbers became still important, but they weren't the end all be all. It just was, okay, this is going to help people communicate more with me. I'm going to be able to communicate more with them. And this is going to lead to less cancellations and more purchases of packages, which it has. And so I think that's really when you can get brands, influencers, and celebrities thinking like that and not so tied to maybe the stressors of how am I going to explain this to my boss that it's going to work, and more so them kind of seeing the endless years of digital marketing and how websites have worked and how social media has worked. This is just an extension of that, and it's playing off of those best practices. I think that's when we have found the most success and have won clients.
I absolutely love that. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. And what I like to do at the end of every show, which I'm trying to implement more of, but I want for you guys to either share something that you're currently learning in the world of voice that you might not have touched on and you haven't formed your opinion around, just kind of like where do you guys learn from, and what information is interesting to you as far as is the cutting edge? And for a lot of people listening, I feel like this might be their first introduction to voice. So giving them kind of like a nugget or a place to either go look for information or just, maybe Google something after the episode. Definitely would love for you guys to share that if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of where I get, and even taking a step back, I think one of the cool things about working in voice is how collaborative the entire community is. Even when I joined, I felt like people were very welcoming when I went to networking events and guided me in places to learn more about things that probably at the time weren't my focus and probably were a weakness in terms of exactly how our voice skills developed, exactly how our flash briefings administered. And so I always say that for people who are looking for career changes or just what's next in digital, beyond voice just being a lot of fun, some of the nicest people you'll come across professionally and personally. So I'll start there. In terms of, I follow in particular Brett Kinsella and Eric Schwartz of VoiceBot AI, two very genuine guys, two very good dudes. And I go to VoiceBot AI every morning. So the way financial bankers and investment bankers go to the Wall Street Journal, that's what I check out, as well as any of the events and news on Voice Summit AI. And there's people in the industry that I'm just very impressed by and always checking on them on LinkedIn and Twitter. So Scott and Sarah Westwater, definitely like two of the most genuine people you'll meet. Definitely recommend them. The gentlemen over at VoxUp, Sajeev and Sandeep, Bradley Metrock, just countless others, but it's a really welcoming community. But I would tell people to start with those suggestions of where to start. Emily Binder, who's doing a lot of great things in the world of voice and finance. Kerry Roberts, who you and I both know from Voice Summit AI, so just a lot of great folks. What am I currently learning? I'm learning more about the Amazon Marketplace. I had done some work in the marketplace earlier in my evolution into voice, but in terms of as we evolve and noodle with ideas like what we shared about PJ Tucker and with the Taylors, we feel like there's just a great opportunity to tie voice and overarching Amazon experiences to the marketplace. I kind of found when I was doing it, the end product was functional, and maybe that's being kind. I'm not a designer by any means, but I'm trying to get a little stronger in that area to really create great marketplace experiences that tie back to the voice skills that we're doing. And so, yeah, I'm learning every day as well, and just excited for the future.
I love it. Rob, what about you?
I definitely still go to VoiceBot.ai, like Cam mentioned as well. I think it's a one-stop shop for all the latest and greatest. I do also use LinkedIn to follow a number of key influencers just to stay top of mind on what they're talking about in the space. I think one thing that I'm really just interested in is really just how voice can ultimately enhance like live experiences, whether it be concerts or, listening to an album on Spotify, that type of thing. Really just taking a next step to provide a better experience for customers in the moment. I think there's just a real opportunity there.
I love it. And I guess I'm also, one last question. I can ask questions for days, y'all.
We got the time today, man. I told Rob, I said Travis has got a real good energy. I know we're scheduled for whatever time, but I was like, you gotta keep at least a couple hours open. So we feel like family with you, man. So we're in no rush. We got the time. We appreciate you for having us on, and we salute you. We love the podcast, as I mentioned when we first got on. So you got us, bro.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
We're huge fans. Always have time for good people.
Oh man, no, that means a lot. I'm over here trying to wrap in the last couple of questions, and now, gosh, wait a minute. But that means a lot, you guys, because one thing that I've been, I guess, not so, great at is like sharing more of the story and sharing the podcast with the world in a way. And one person that has helped me tremendously in this journey has been my audio team over at Krusz Control Music. And what he's doing is something I find super interesting, that he's using audio branding and an audio logo. So like the little jingles and the little, like, I don't know what you even call them. What do people call those nowadays?
Sonic. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think it's known as sonic branding, but essentially it's the jingles of when we were all kids.
Exactly. So sonic branding. I feel like audio branding, sonic branding, like jingles, they're all in that world. And I just call it audio branding. One thing that he's doing, which I found super interesting, is that he's helping people put together custom songs to go behind different posts.
I love that.
So, like, you tell me, like, hey, this is the message that I want to get across, and this is what I want to say, and he'll create an actual song to go to your words. And I was like, one reason I brought this up is because, like, what impact, if at all, do you think adding music to the component of voice would bring to that experience? And then as a follow-up, it's like, well, what have you seen people implementing sonic branding at all on top of the voice, or has it just been strictly voice? So it's like a two-part question.
Sure. I love the idea. There hasn't been music per se, but in one of our fitness clients, we were talking to him about what does it take for somebody to convert onto or to buy a package, right? And he's based in New York. His sessions are higher than what probably most of America is used to, but his costs are based upon the cost of living in New York. And so he was explaining to us that getting someone in for an initial free session isn't challenging, but he also really wants to represent what the workout is like. And so it's kind of a delicate balance in the sense of if he goes too easy, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not going to see results from him. But if he does even kind of the moderate version of his workout, and we've both been through it. I mean, he's a great trainer. People are sort of like, whoa, right? And so he's kind of found the balance of what's the type of initial workout, but he knows people leave his workouts thinking, am I really going to be committed to this? And he's honest with people about to see great results or initial results. It's going to take about 3 months and usually cleaning up their diet. But it's a pretty significant financial investment. And that's usually, as he's just acknowledged, that's where people's heads go of, am I going to be able to afford this long term, or do I just cut bait now? And I said, well, help me understand, like because he has a pretty good stable of clients. I said, people who've converted even recently, what did it? And he actually said it was just a conversation. And I said, all right, we got to delve into that more. And he said, yeah, it's typically explaining to them what just happened to them in their workout, why their arms feel that way, why they're already seeing a little bit of definition like in their back, etc. And he said, kind of once my methodology and approach is explained, and it means a little bit more because they just experienced it, they usually convert. And so we've been talking to him about, call it sonic branding, audio branding, of you need to bring that across to your clients, but it shouldn't be like a long form podcast where people need to listen for an hour or 30 minutes. It just needs to be snackable, like what you just told me. And so we've been talking to him about how do we bring that across to doing these audio snippets that will help him convert people and sending that through email or post. So we see a lot of opportunity with sonic branding, or even just noticing the brand. There's essentially, let's call them what it is, jingles, but even noticing the brand the moment you kind of hear that sound. And we've even been thinking about that for conversational theater. What would be that noise of when we start a presentation where clients lean in and like, oh, I know these guys, or I've heard of these guys in general. So we're big fans. We're big fans of the idea.
I would be more than happy to connect you guys with Justin. He's done an awesome job of like, I don't know if you've heard the music at the beginning of the podcast. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all, Justin literally had me in the studio like I was Lil Wayne, y'all. But
We would love the connection.
yeah, no, I'll definitely connect you guys after this.
This could be trouble though. I might just posting everything on Instagram with 8701 behind it, and just like, that'll just be my thing.
I mean, yo, he could probably come up with something. He is creative. Whatever you give him, he literally took all the old songs that I spit at him of like, I used to use, copyright free music, and he was like, all right, what is your ideal sound? I'm like, what you mean? Like, bro, I don't know. Like, it got me from not knowing what my ideal sound was to then being able to create a song like you guys heard. And
Yeah.
It's not like getting a song off of Fiverr or like just getting someone to make you a song to go behind your podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He listened to what I was feeling and what sort of message I wanted to get across, and then literally took the songs that I gave him. I was like, yo, here's a Spotify playlist. Here's what I listened to. Here's what I used. And then he mashed that all together into a specific sound, and then also coached me up through, what to say, what words go well, how to get this into 15 seconds. So it was a full-on experience where, like I said, I literally felt like I was Lil Wayne or Drake in the studio with the producer. And I don't talk about that enough. One reason I'm sharing that right now is because I work with a lot of people that want to get podcasts started. And a lot of times they're, wanting to get it off the ground, and they're not really thinking about, okay, well, what does my audio strategy sound like?
Yeah.
And like a $25, $50 microphone and a pop filter from Amazon is not the world-class level of production. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love what you're saying, Travis. I think there's obviously the business strategies side of it, but I also think don't discount like the story component that, what you mentioned about Lil Wayne being in the studio. Like I feel like I don't want that to get lost, because I think that's a really cool component behind your own personal brand.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I need more people like you, Cam, and you, Rob, to remind me of that, because we have the footage, we have all the documentation of it, but it's that stuff that it's in the archive. And like the main reason why I want to share this is because I want, for people that listen to this, I want you to start to understand what taking a podcast seriously might look like. For me, I'll be the first to tell you, I put out initial, I think it was like 13 episodes or so, and got to the point where I just started recording, and I didn't have the energy or the resources to keep putting them out, to the extent that now I have over, 40 or so episodes. Who knows how many are going to be out once this is released.
Yeah.
But I just went into heads down mode, get the conversations, and go back to the drawing board after the conversations are recorded, because you can always post edit and get things, edited.
Sure.
But you can't always get the guests on the show. That's something you're not always going to be able to do. So like wrapping that all up, taking a really strong approach to, having an audio strategy, thinking about what your, maybe little jingle sounds like, thinking about getting high quality equipment, thinking about how you use your words, think about the story you tell people, and not just getting a song off of Fiverr. For me, it wasn't just like, oh, like I was doing it, normal stuff, I had a blue ball mic, like very simple things. And then now I'm like, okay, let's start investing in this audio equipment.
Right.
Let's start figuring out how to take my experience to the new level. And for everybody that's listening, it's like, well, all of this stuff that we're talking about, voice and audio branding and how brands can tap into a whole new platform and actually be on the cutting edge of technology that's coming out in the world. It's like, these are all things that actually take thought, energy, and work. Like, it's not a buy something from Amazon, record a conversation, and put it out. It's going to take a little bit more to keep it going because you're going to eventually get burnt out. You're going to get tired of doing it if you don't really do it for the right reasons. And so, like, that's one thing that I went through of, oh, wow, like, this might not be the thing I need to do right now because it's like, oh, man, like, this felt like a chore. So, like, I wanted to share that because that's something I feel like I've never shared with anybody. And
but you know what you have and what I texted 2 nights ago when I was listening to your other episodes to kind of understand, like you and I spoke in person, but I wanted to understand your interview style and what you might ask. And this is not a humble brag, but Rob and I do get asked to do a lot of podcasts because voice is so big. And sometimes, a lot of times actually, we say no. And so I think piggybacking off of what you said, one, I think the number of people are doing podcasts to say they have podcasts more as like a resume thing. And when we consider doing their shows, we opt not to because it feels like vanilla. We don't want to go on and just be the voice guys, right? We love the fact that you let us really get into our creative bag and share ideas like PJ Tucker, like what we're doing with Taylor's, what we're thinking about for the WNBA, what we've done with fitness studios. So I think your authenticity and how genuine you are really comes through. And so we just kind of felt like we knew there'd be good energy and there'd be a great conversation. But in terms of listening to the range of people you have interviewed, you've got a book, man. You've got a book. I mean, you could either write it yourself or have somebody else, a professional author, transcribe it for you. But I think you have such an interest in collection of what community means. It's almost like an anthology too of even looking at it through. You have people who kind of broke down like the theory of the foundations of community, but I think also there's time periods also in your podcast, things I never thought about either, that was like really captivating. And so I think you're sitting on a lot of great content. Yeah, we salute you, man.
I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things I was just so impressed by was that there was such a range of perspectives and different types of people from all walks of life, but you identified like a universal common thread. That's something that's important to all of us, and it's very real. And I think Cam and I take a lot of pride in building authentic brands and authentic storytelling, and we saw that same genuine authenticity in the work you're doing. So, like I said, we mentioned earlier, we're big fans and big advocates of yours, and just want you to know that.
And y'all about to make me cry through this microphone.
Doing your thing, my man.
No, but you need to do that book, man. I'm telling you, you've got a book there. You've got a few books, actually. You said 40 podcasts, but there definitely is a connective thread, and there's just so much information in it as well. And so you talked about one of your passions is learning, and that was just very clear. Most people don't seek out the people you've interviewed just because they're not to say that you're not like-minded, but you're not in the same industry per se. You probably don't have the same interest in music or movies, but you seek them out. And as I said, like Rob said, that authenticity comes through. And it was just like, you get people so comfortable that they break from the media training, as Rob and I did in this as well, and get verbose, get talkative, and really share a lot of nuggets of insights. And so we definitely been recommending your podcast this week to our friends in our network. There's definitely something you need to add to your list.
Man, y'all, I don't even know what to say to that besides thank you. And it's interesting that you say that, and I love it, mainly also because I've never heard it. So that's fun. So thank you for sharing that message. It definitely means a lot to me. And number two, as I got back home last night from a flag football game, I play flag football on Wednesdays at Hoboken with the homies. We got the W. Team got a little mad at me because I was quiet all game. Then all of a sudden, I kept breaking one of the dudes' cushions, and he was like, "Yo, man, like, what, like, why are you talking now?" I'm like, "Bro, I break your cushion every time. It's automatic pass interference. If we were playing real football, you would have had 15 flags by now, and we'd be on the 1 yard line."
Yeah.
But we won't go into that. And I got back home, and I was literally thinking of like what I wanted to do in 2020. One of the things on my list was literally talk to people who I've interviewed and maybe ask them what the beginning stages of writing a book might look like.
Yeah.
And you guys literally just echoed that thought into the universe, but out through your actual mouths. And so now I'm like, sucky now. Gotta maybe go talk to these people about some book stuff, because that's something like, even as we're sitting here right now, I have 13 notebooks from previous, jobs, roles, times in my life. And since I started working. So since 2014, I guess, was like the first real job till 2019 now. So 5 years worth of business knowledge. And that's not including like the podcast stuff. That's
Right.
just in business, like taking notes in offices, in meetings, inside of companies. And I'm like, one of my friends was like, "Dude, like, you could sell this stuff, right?" I'm like, yeah, it's just like how I learn, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, no, but really, Trav, like, you should sell this stuff. And I was like, let me think about that. I guess my first question now is like, do y'all know anybody that's written books? And if so, you're trying to connect the brother?
Yeah, no, for sure. I know quite a few people who've gotten in the books, and it was the similar type of, I guess, trigger, or what initiated it is they just realized that they were sitting on a lot of valuable content, and also it was something that they were passionate and authentic about. So I could definitely reach out, but I have quite a few friends who have published books. Both have self-published, and some have gone through the publishing house route.
Interesting. And that's actually one thing. I'm on my Rust grind where I'm like, yo, I didn't really do too much with, like, it was a friend who I actually met through, it's crazy how I met my audio engineer, saw a Gary Vee post, saw a woman in the post who's from New Jersey, interviewed her on the podcast, and then the person that she connected me with that was in her life was actually now who's my audio engineer. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a story in and of itself, I feel like.
Yeah, man, that's the universe working in your favor.
In terms of where to find you guys online, like, where can people stay connected with you guys after the show?
We need to get our website up. Our website.
I heard that in your voice.
No, our website is coming soon. We can give you in the show notes our email addresses. Kam at Convo Theater, Rob at Convo Theater. The website should be up within a week's time. And that's the best way to find us. We're both very active on Twitter in terms of conversations about all things tech, not just voice. So, yeah, reach out. Let's have a conversation. The name of the company is Conversational Theater. The idea of pulling across a number of the themes you've heard today, we put together voice experiences that are spark the theater of the mind, as we call it. And so we work across all brands, Fortune 500 companies, influencers, celebrities, small business. We work across everybody.
Voice experiences that spark the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm over here and I'm laughing in my head too, because the way that most podcasts start off, it's like, "Hey y'all, here's who I'm talking with today." And I was like, yeah, and I'm more of a, what's the word? I like to call myself a change agent rather than a misfit, mainly because, like, for me, it's like, this is the way that I find that works well for episodes. And now I'm like, wait a minute, I need to get them to do a little mini plug for themselves.
Nah, it's all good. Like we said, today felt like hanging out with family, man. So we appreciated the conversation, talking about voice, tech, and getting to learn more about you and your podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Community Builder Podcast. If you received an ounce of value from this podcast, share it with your friends. Oh yeah, don't forget to leave me a 5-star review. I need those. Remember, each perfectly laid brick moves you one step closer to building your community.